It's the Pete Sousa Show. Sports, Pete.
Welcome to the Alico building here in Central Texas, the 21st floor, Pete Sousa Show, brought to you by Slovacek's, Crawford Austin Properties, Daniel Stark Injury Lawyers, Sequoia Family Ford. You can't forget about our guys at D1 either. I need to get back over there if you can't tell. Pete Sousa Show. We got Scotty here, Scotty Swingler.
I'm here.
Back for your second day.
Yes, sir.
All right. Scotty's in the house. And I'm going to start off with a bit of a bummer. Terry Garr has died. Terry Garr, actress. She was in Young Frankenstein, was in Tootsie, of course, was in Mr. Mom. She was the mom that went back to work, leaving Michael Keaton to be the mom. That was probably one of the first movies I can remember seeing and really being like, oh, man, this movie's awesome. So sad to see Terry Garr. Sad to see that news. It just came across the timeline. She was born on October 2000. No. That was wrong. Look at this. This is wrong. So she was born on October 29th, 2004. Wow. Well, of course, she was best known for Young Frankenstein. Yeah, that was her big break in the 80s. Of course, she landed the role in Tootsie. And, yeah, that's all we have right now. Oh, she was nominated for an Academy Award for Tootsie. 79 years of age. Terry Garr, that's a bummer. Always makes us kind of check in on our own mortality because growing up with her, being very funny, of course, attractive for a young man like me. It was pretty cool. So that's something I just heard about and I wanted to share because it's kind of a thread that kind of continued through my younger years. Terry Garr did for sure. Top of the mind this morning, the New York Yankees being down 3-0. We have Matt Mosley coming up in a little bit. We're going to talk about the Dallas Cowboys and exactly where they are. So always good to check in with Mosley about the status of the Cowboys, which I see right now is not very good. But the Yankees are down 3-0 to the LA Dodgers in the World Series. Now, the New York Yankees playing the victim role, and I'm not saying they're playing the victim. The New York Yankees as the victim. Let's put it that way. Just doesn't seem right to me. But what also doesn't seem right is, and really watching, Cam's going to join us later on. We taped a segment with him, and he's going to come on and talk a little bit about stuff other than this series. But I talked about a little bit on his show that wouldn't it be very interesting, right? Now, here the Yankees are. Let me back up a little bit. Everywhere I turn this morning, whether it's First Take, whether it's reading the New York Post, whether it's watching Cam, New York Times, whatever, everybody has the Yankees dead in this series, right? The Yankees are toast. Now, in the forefront of pop culture right now, at least for a sliver, because we see this happen with Netflix, is the comeback about the 2004 Boston Red Sox team and their epic comeback against the Yankees, which is I saw the documentary. I lived it, right? But I didn't remember so much of it because it wasn't my team. But watching that, it made me believe that coming down from 3-0 was possible. And really, if you look at the Red Sox task in 2004, it really appeared impossible because of the emotional baggage they carried into that season, constantly losing, constantly struggling against the Yankees ending their season literally the year before with the Aaron Boone walk-off in the ALCS. So now here they are back again in the ALCS. The ghosts are starting to appear. They're down 3-0, and they come back. They rattle off 4 straight, and then they beat the Cardinals in the World Series. So they actually end the season on an 8-game heater. The Yankees need a miracle, but you don't have to look very far to find the miracle. Regardless of, it's hard for me to imagine, and I don't know. I don't think I'm inventing this little theory here, but somebody close to the Yankees organization or close to somebody on that team has got to bring up the fact that the Red Sox came back from down 3-0 in the World Series. It had never been done, or in the League Championship Series. It had never been done before. So if somebody can get to a member of the Yankees, because I don't think these guys are watching Netflix going to bed at night. Maybe one or two of them are. I don't know, right? But I don't think so. But if somebody can share with them, hey, I want you to watch this documentary. You guys, maybe if you have a little bit of time, or I want to tell you a story. And the story, by the way, is right over there on Netflix. If you've got 3 hours to spare, which I'm not sure these guys do, but they probably do not. But the story is at the forefront right now of sports and pop culture, because if you open up your Netflix, it's one of the first things that splashes on the screen. And in the zeitgeist of modern society, which is so fleeting, it's right there right now. And it's the 20-year anniversary, and a lot of people are talking about it. Wouldn't it be so ironic if somehow the Yankees were able to dip into the magic of coming back 3-0 and to gain inspiration from their arch rival? I can't say nemesis. I think you'd say the Yankees, still the Red Sox nemesis. That could be debated, but quite a rival like the Red Sox. I mean, how amazing would that be? And even for me as a fan and somebody who's watching a little bit, like seeing everyone today talk about, and the Dodgers, by the way, are so good. I'm ruling out, I'm not including one of the biggest parts, or the biggest part of the story, is that the Dodgers are like a hot knife through butter through everyone right now. And they score so many runs. And it's so hard to compete with them. And even when they're not scoring so many runs, their pitching has come through and has completely shut the Yankees down, as we've seen in the first 3 games. But it's something I can reach out and touch. This is just me as a fan. The comeback. So many talking heads, right? Which were obviously used in this documentary, proclaiming the Yankees or the Red Sox just dead when they were down 3-0 in 2004. You couldn't even imagine the Red Sox coming back against the Yankees. And Theo Epstein talks about it. He said, going into game 3 or game 4, at home, by the way, like they were just, they basically didn't have a heartbeat. And Kevin Millar started to walk around and say, hey, if we win tonight, look out, which is a great way to look at it. Like, if we win tonight, look out. And he started to cite their pitching. Then we got Pedro coming up, then we got Schilling. And hey, I remember he told Dan Shaughnessy, he said, you could pitch game 7, as long as we can get there. But it's front and center for us. And if the Yankees can win one game, can just win one game, if they can win tonight, I feel like, because I've just seen it recapped so beautifully by the folks at Meadowlark Media. It's just such a good documentary. I'm a Phillies fan, right? But it's just something that's right there, and I think it will be quite the irony if the Yankees could draw any sort of spirit or confidence from that magical situation, from their arch rival, the Boston Red Sox. So that's something to keep an eye on. Another thing I want to talk about here at the top of the show, the Dallas Cowboys. Mentioned them a little bit yesterday. I'm really curious to see what Matt Mosley has to say, because right now the Cowboys are, and we mentioned it yesterday, in the bottom half of the NFC East, and seems like the Eagles are really starting to come on. And that was watching the Eagles game on Sunday. It was the best performance for Jalen Hurts of the season. And if Jalen Hurts can figure it out and continue to move, like Jalen Hurts, that performance by Jalen Hurts, like we've seen nothing close to that from Dak Prescott this year. So that's a concern. And I imagine from watching, the reason it's such a concern for the Cowboys is they're asking Dak to do too much. Like, people are calling Dak on the carpet, and I don't think I think this is something that, again, like, we're in this real, like, tight window of time where everything We're all prisoners in the moment, myself included. And I don't believe that Dak Prescott is, but if you hear the noise, it's loud and clear that like Dak isn't worth the money that he's being paid. And Dak is not Patrick Mahomes or Lamar Jackson. It's like, dude, nobody is. I think that's something that we all have to wrap our minds around, whether we live here in Texas or whether we're Cowboys fans, is that like, yes, Dak Prescott got the going rate for a quarterback coming up on a new contract. But can we expect him to exceed the expectations of a Patrick Mahomes and a Lamar Jackson? I don't know. Scotty, what do you got? I see you pulling the mic.
So I'm a lifelong Cowboys fan.
Yeah.
And I think what's hard is
don't hold back now.
Like with the extension, like you've also kind of limited yourself. Like the Cowboys could very well have a top 5 or 6 pick in the draft and say, well, we can't take Shedeur because we just signed Dak, right? Like I just think Cowboys fans are tired of, and it happened with Tony Romo too. And I'm a huge Tony Romo fan. Great regular season, whoop the bad teams and lose in the most important moments. I almost like, is Dak Prescott Jay Cutler? Like, what's the comp as far as like, man, this guy's talented and he can beat bad teams and can never get over the hump of beating a good team?
Yeah. Well, hold on. You mentioned the, win in the regular season, make it to the playoffs. Like, how desperate are you now as a Cowboys fan? Because you're not even winning during the regular season. Like, the outlook is not very good.
So the narrative around Dak, at least in my mind, has always been, oh man, he wins when all the other pieces are in place. He had that offensive line when Zeke Elliott was at his prime, right? And yeah, like Dak was really good, but as soon as line play suffers, or you don't have a dynamic running back, or you've only got one great receiver instead of 2 or 3, when has he ever put the team on his own shoulders? And some people, oh, that's unfair. And sure, Mahomes has a great team and a great coach. I mean, but he's never felt like he could win a game by himself with his effort the way the greats can.
Yeah. No, and that's, another side of that argument would be, look, the Cowboys don't have one rush. They have one rush over 15 yards all season long. Like, so he needs some kind of help. But
sure. So I can simultaneously say the struggles this season are not squarely on his shoulders. Mm-hmm. And yet I don't like that we gave him another contract and a bunch of money, because he has not ever proven he can take us over the top.
Yeah. So you feel like, I love your thing about Shedeur. Like I would be, gosh, if the bottom were to fall out for the rest of the year and the Cowboys were to get, a top pick in the draft and they were able to maneuver to get somebody like Shedeur Sanders, oof, man.
I mean, at this point, if you're a Cowboys fan, like Shedeur or Dak, I want to see Shedeur. Cam Ward or Dak, I probably want to see Cam Ward. I'm almost like Quinn Ewers or Dak. Give me Quinn Ewers. We don't know how good any of those guys are going to be in the league, but we know what Dak is, and it's not a Super Bowl winner.
Is it this season, or is it the culmination of seasons past?
So for me, it's the culmination. So I last year before the 49ers game, I texted a buddy. I said, I would love to be wrong, but Dak's going to throw 2 interceptions and lose this game. Right. And then it literally plays out that way. And one of them's a pick 6. It's the same thing. It's the same. And he did it again Sunday night, right? Yeah. Just ugly interceptions. Right. Yeah. And again, like the Cowboys are terrible. Defense is terrible. Run game's terrible, but you can't excuse throwing picks in big games over and over and over and over.
All right, there you go. Scotty weighing in. And that's good. That's a really interesting point of view, because when you do think about the time and the money that's tied up into Dak, it's something that could saddle the Cowboys for years to come. Maybe they could use Sawyer Robertson, because he was up here yesterday. We had a chance to talk to him, and there's nobody hotter in college football. Sawyer Robertson has been, as he described it to me yesterday, sitting right here in this studio, the game has really slowed down for him. And I asked him, I said, what's the one thing you feel like has improved for you this year? What's the one thing that you can put your finger on and say, I've gotten better at that? And he said, without hesitation, or maybe a little bit, the game has slowed down for me, which is a scary thing to think about if you're TCU or if you're an upcoming Baylor opponent, because we hear that from the great quarterbacks, the game is slowing down for me. Sawyer Robertson, on paper, has always been a guy who you look at and say, wow, I get me some of that. Just a 4-star quarterback from West Texas who can sling it around. And also, we had a chance to experience yesterday the leadership qualities. You know, I've had the opportunity to call some Baylor games. And I think of the 3 games that I've called, Baylor football, he has been the starter for one of them. It was like a Long Island game. That was like just a rough situation for anybody. But the opener this year, it was DeQuan Finn. Last year, what's his name?
Blake Shapen.
Blake Shapen. And so who's now at Mississippi State, kind of having
struggling.
Yep. Yeah. And so this is his team now. And he is the starter, the bona fide starter. There's no looking in the rearview mirror. He is being given the opportunity to live up to his expectations. And props to Jake Spavital and Dave Aranda for giving him the keys, because obviously it was a hard fought competition in camp, and DeQuan Finn won it. And, you know, now it's Sawyer Robertson's job. And his ability to run the football, I think, speaks to his leadership qualities. To stick his nose in it. A lot of the plays we've seen him have success with on the ground are runs right back up the middle with absolutely no fear. And in this interview, which will be released in a few days on the GXG platform in association with Rogue Media Network, it illustrates the type of leadership that he has. One other thing, a comment that I think is worth sharing, is when Sawyer talked about how he ended up at Baylor. And it's a situation that really it's bigger than him. And it starts with tragedy, right? It starts with Mike Leach recruiting him to Mississippi State. And Sawyer could not wait to play for Mike Leach. Mike Leach tragically dies, almost exactly 2 years ago, not quite 2 years ago. And, it's during the season. And what do you do? What does anyone do? Ultimately, when the dust settles, Sawyer felt the best situation for him would be here at Baylor. And no surprise, it would take a minute to knock the cobwebs off or whatever is going off upstairs, which it didn't seem, honestly, by all accounts, it took him that long. But to find that gear as a player and to rise above all the noise. And again, this interview is awesome. We talk about social media and all the noise there. A very easy guy to root for before he, put together this string of play that's seen him win these games and also earn Big 12 Player of the Week, going back home, Big 12 Offensive Player of the Week to Texas Tech and just lighten it up. Last game, the ability to guide his team to a victory, to pull it away, and not as someone who's newer as a starting quarterback on a team that's faced a tough go at it parts in the season. They didn't find a way to lose. They found a way to win, and that's what you want. Scotty, how are you feeling about Sawyer Robertson right now, being a Baylor grad and a Baylor superfan?
So I'm not just saying this for clout. I've been on the Sawyer Robertson train since last season. I wanted him to get more playing time last season. I looked it up as you were talking because you said he's really hot. He is 8th in the country in QBR. He's less than a point behind Dylan Gabriel, and he's ahead of Shadur Sanders, Jalen Milroe, Avery Johnson, Carson Beck, a lot of these big name quarterbacks. Sawyer Robertson, according to QBR, is better. I mean, he's having a better season than these guys. Quinn Ewers. So he has really come alive. And I think even just the turnaround from like the Iowa State game, like, I don't know what it was. The offense started hot in that game and then pulled back and could not score in the second half. And who knows why, but to turn around from that,
Iowa State's defense is pretty good reason.
Well, they are pretty good, but you wouldn't look at that game and think, oh, Sawyer played poorly, but we just could not move the ball. And then to go into Lubbock, and then, like you said, close game at home this last week, he is putting it together, and it's fun. And you're right, easy guy to root for.
Easy guy to root for. Another easy guy to root for, Matt Mosley, coming up on the other side of the break. We're talking Cowboys, the Pete Sousa Show, powered by the Rogue Media Network.
It's the Pete Sousa Show. Sports, Pete. Sports.
It is the Pete Sousa Show, presented by Slovaceks, powered by the Rogue Media Network. I'd like to thank Crawford Austin Properties, Sikora Family Ford, and Daniel Stark Injury Lawyers. And also like to thank Matt Mosley. Matt, are you there?
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you, Pete.
Are you on the tennis court again?
No, I felt like the last appearance, I was a bit winded from a tough comeback. I can't remember how that worked. I think I had to pause, and then after blowing a lead, I had to get the win after we completed the interview.
No,
so
I remember
today,
exactly what happened because I'm pretty good with stuff like this. You won before the interview. However, your opponent was not pleased with the way in which you kind of sped things along. He felt like you maybe were quick serving him a little bit, but you got the W.
yeah, I felt a little bit not bad enough to like concede the win, but I certainly was rushing him in trying to get the last game in with everything on the line. And it was like 6-5. I think I was up, and I did quick serve him. And then just in time, as I completed the match and was making my apologies, the Sousa show called, and I had to be ready to go. But it was another glorious win. We had one last night against the same guy.
Oh, really?
So, I mean, this is he's a great friend. We all need somebody like this in our lives. And Pete, I'm sure you have somebody like this. Like most people, if you beat them almost every time in tennis, and he's okay, he's competitive, but we'd stop playing at some point. And like my other buddy who knows about this match with this guy, he calls this guy the Washington Generals of tennis, of rec tennis. But I mean, no matter what, he's always ready to play the next day. Like he never takes a loss hard, and he's always ready to run back. You need friends in your. I'm not like that. I would quit if somebody was beating me all the time. And he is ready to play all the time, which I think is a great trait.
Maybe Cam is like that for us.
Cam is not. Cam, any adversity hits, Cam is done. Cam is ready to leave the building.
All right, what about the Cowboys? Adversity is hitting them pretty hard. First of all, what did you think about the Mike Leslie situation with Trayvon Diggs? As somebody who's been around this team for a long time and been outside many situations like that or been around it, what were your thoughts instantaneously?
You'll like this because I do think you like when Uncle Mo gets into some story time. It did make me think of a confrontation I had with Terrell Owens. But before I get to that, if you do want to hear that story,
I very much so.
It's just, boy, it really is reflective of this team and this head coach. I think this head coach is kind of thin-skinned. There seems to be a lot of excuse making. I told you a few weeks ago, I thought the Cowboys might be able to right the ship, kind of hang in there, and who knows, maybe somehow be in a playoff conversation. So at some point this season, I don't see that path anymore. So it's almost like things have flipped. I thought Cowboys had a chance, and like Baylor was done, and it was time to start thinking about the next coach. It's all flipped. And by the way, I need to give you credit where credit's due. I thought you were being sort of, I didn't know why, because you're not a pom-pom guy, but you brought up something, how Baylor could somehow get on a roll and get it to 8-4. And I think you may have predicted 7-5. You were absolutely right. I didn't see it. I didn't see any path toward that. And yet the Cowboys have gone the way Baylor looked like they were going. They're done. And the Diggs thing was embarrassing on a lot of levels. I mean, first of all, this generation of players that you would be in full uniform after a tough loss, which they kind of climbed back in the game, and within like 4 or 5 minutes of getting to think about what had to happen. McCarthy has to give the little post-game address to his players. Diggs has to get to his phone, see a tweet written about him, leave the locker room. They haven't even let the press in the locker room, and go out and find Leslie. Here's how big a rabbit ears Diggs had. He saw Leslie. He must have made eye contact on the way in, sees the tweet, and goes, I just saw that guy. In fact, I know this is how it happened because he said this on Micah Parsons' podcast. And he goes out and, wow, it just, you talk about, this is, especially you being a Philly guy, and I think there's a level of toughness that you have to be, especially like South Philly. There's thoughts of that. This is just really soft, is the way this comes across. And that's the way people, I think, look at this organization anyway. But it's bad when you reinforce it with what happened the other day. Now, I'll say this. I've been in these situations. I don't have a problem with players confronting reporters. I've had it happen plenty of times. Listen, I've had Baylor administrators very upset with something that I've done and come right at me. And you know what? I'm okay with it. I'm okay. Like either I go, hey, sorry, I was in the wrong, or I go, you know, I try to usually de-escalate if you can believe it. Not always. I've probably been the escalator of some confrontations. But even, I mean, think about that. Even with my great relationship with Baylor and my years of loving this place, I get into it with them. I guess it's like family members. We do have it out from time to time on certain things I've either said or done or whatever. But one time after a Cowboys game, I was and this was not out waiting. We were in an interview area, and T.O. came to the podium, and there were about 40 to 50 reporters standing around. It was after an NBC night game, and the Cowboys won that game. He had a big night, and they brought him to the podium, and I'm just kind of, you know, monitoring what he's saying. At that point, I guess I was writing and on the radio in Dallas, and he just goes, I heard what you said, Matt Mosley. I heard what you've been saying on the radio about me. And you know, it's just in front of everybody. He comes right at me. And so, again, that's not a good forum for me, like, to be hollering something back at him. So I just let him say his piece. And I was just like, dang, this is interesting. I mean, it didn't really rile me. I think I was more amused than anything. But I did afterwards walk up to him in the tunnel and just said, hey, I'm here. Like, if you want to talk about something, I'm fine. And he was playing, and he was with a buddy that played for the Cavs at the time. And I think it was a little guard named Damon somebody. No, you could think of it. I think his name was Damon.
Not Damon Stoudemire, obviously.
No. This was a guard
Damon
that was
West?
with the.
No, not Damon West.
No. Damon. Yeah, his name was Damon. And so, anyway, I'd have to look it up, but it was like, I'll tell you, because I used to see Rajah Bell around. It was somebody kind of that era.
Uh-huh.
But anyway, he happened to be with T.O. and this Cavs player started kind of doing something like, T.O. was saying, what you going to do, chump, to me? And then the Cavs players started doing it to me. Like, what you going to do, chump? And they were raising their, and like, I was sort of shocked. I'm like, I got one of the most famous NFL players and this Cleveland Cavs player. Was his last name Hack? No, that's a golf writer. Anyway, shouting at me after a game. So again, I just said I did not engage like physically, like I'm going to go fight T.O. because that's a losing, that nobody wins there. And I promise you, I don't fare well in that scene. And I just sat there and I go, hey, I'm here. You want to talk? We'll talk. And it was like what you going to do, chump? And then they just kept walking and left.
Damon Jones.
That's it. Yeah.
I just looked.
Yeah, that's the Cavs player. That's exactly who it was. And T.O. always had.
How did that affect your coverage of him and the team going forward?
I had moments where I was kind of okay with T.O. but that stuff didn't help. And again, I was really young, And I was probably a little caught. I mean, this guy transcended being just a normal football player. He was like a huge, full-blown celebrity kind of guy. And he had all these, like, he had an accidental overdose at one point that became a huge story.
That was so bizarre.
And
remember his
there were helicopters.
You were there.
Yeah, I was there for all that. And so I don't know. I was doing an interesting thing at the time because I was kind of transitioning into writing columns and being more opinionated. And then I had a radio show with this famous old sports writer and in Dallas. Yes. Yeah. And we were just sort of known as, we didn't hold back on things. And I think we were sort of at the time considered probably toughest on people and local athletes in the market. And so I guess my thought is I didn't really have an issue. It was a weird thing, and I had it happen in the locker room at times. People approach me or say something, but I always kind of tried to have a little bit of presence of like self-awareness. Like, listen, I am a smart aleck and I tend to get under people's skin. So I can't be shocked when they're provoked and they come after me. Now, what I tried not to do was be like one of these weird Bayless types who's just doing it only to get attention. I did not like that. I drew the line at that. But if I wrote something they didn't like and they came after me, I really did not have a problem with it. So the problem with what it was not confronting, that wasn't even the problem. Like if that had to happen in the locker room, I think it would have been a little bit better. Or even like out at, if he took Mike Leslie aside and did it, I've seen some ugly times. I've seen players handle it really well. I've seen some ugly stuff that happens. But yeah, the worst part of it was not even the confrontation. It's the fact that he was on his Twitter within and even McCarthy, I think, brought that up. Like within, 4 or 5 minutes of losing a big game. Yeah. Like it just speaks to the psyche and the mentality of, I mean, he's probably not the only one that's done something like this, but of this team and this player specifically, that's the kind of stuff you're thinking about after a game. And all that was said by Mike Leslie was basically like, what is Trayvon Diggs doing on this play? Well, think about how horrible fans and people are on Twitter and social media. There are far worse things said about players, but for whatever reason, this really got under this player's skin. But again, it makes them look soft. It makes them look extremely sensitive. I mean, Pete, you have to deal with, and it used to bother Joe Buck immensely. You think, well, Joe Buck's huge. But all that criticism on Twitter and like Witten, it just killed. Like Witten, and of course that crew was struggling so much, but he got crushed on social media. Like even with what you do on ESPN games, somebody out there is going to not like, somebody's going to decide you're being.
I'll tell you a good story that's okay. Continues to bubble up. My first game for ESPN was Kansas State, Nebraska. And it was college basketball. It was December, 3 years ago. And it went really well. Right? Like I got more work right away. But during the course of the game, I made the boneheaded mistake of saying, not the Wildcats in referencing Kansas State. I said the Jayhawks, right? So, yeah. So I get it on Twitter a couple times afterwards, and it's kind of like, okay, whatever. But the more my career has moved forward, like somebody will always show up in comments of stuff that I do and say, hey, like your credibility will be served by not calling Kansas State the Jayhawks. I'm like, it's 3 years ago. And you have to just like you have to just stop looking at that stuff. I talked to, and I know we're going to share this with you, but I talked to Sawyer Robertson yesterday about that, about, staying. He was like, and what a great kid, but he said, hey, if I have to post something basically to repost it, and it sounds like whether that's a contract obligation, he said, I'll download Instagram and repost it. But he was like, when he mentioned Twitter or X or whatever the hell you want to call it, he was like, I can't even go there. And he said sometimes he gets crap when he plays well because bettors don't like that he went over on stuff.
Well, he's got to learn how to take that stuff as a compliment, but he's smart to, only dabble in it. That's very smart. And most kids don't learn that. There was some Baylor player I was trying to recently, like maybe a former Baylor basketball player or something. I was going to try to tag them on something, and I realized they didn't have a Twitter account. And maybe Jared Butler or somebody used to be like that. Man, that's the height of like there's a star kid at the high school where my daughter goes. There's this like unbelievable running back. Yeah, Lake Highlands, and his name's Christian Rhodes. And I tried to put Baylor onto him, and unfortunately, everybody in the country now knows about him. He's a junior, and he's getting offers from Miami, Ole Miss, Oklahoma State, every single school in the country. And I put Baylor on him first, but unfortunately, they already had 2 running backs committed for 2026. But I thought this was funny. The coaches told me yesterday, they're like, yeah, we have to manage all his social media accounts because he just doesn't care and he won't even do social media. And I thought to myself, well, that's great.
Yeah.
That's not a bad thing about him. It was almost like they were complaining to me. They're like, our coaches have to handle all his social media. And I thought to myself, how refreshing is that? This kid is blowing up before our very eyes. He's 6'2", 215. He runs a 4.5. Like he's a monster and he doesn't care. Like he wants nothing to do with the social media. And I thought, man, what
appetizing, I would think, for coaches.
I think so. I think that's pretty awesome. Honestly.
Last question for you. What is the Cowboys' identity right now?
Soft. They don't have one. They certainly don't have a run game. I mean, their only thing that could possibly save the day is if somehow they could get Micah back and Duran. I mean, it's taken Duran a long time to come back from that injury. And I mean, like, I would say this Atlanta game becomes, I know people are probably thinking, well, the season's over. And maybe it is, but like, because honestly, if they lose this game, they could go into Thanksgiving at 3-7.
Yeah.
So I would say they don't have an identity. I think soft. I think I give the defense an out. I literally Zimmer. I wouldn't fire him. Like I know he had some horrible early season kind of things, but right now they don't have the personnel to really accomplish much. And again, they had a chance to go win that game late the other night.
Yes.
I think the offense is just I mean, and there's for some reason people are extremely defensive of Dak. I don't understand it. Like I'm like, wait, we've been criticizing quarterbacks since the beginning of football. Why in the world and they like, well, what y'all keep mentioning that he's the highest paid player in the NFL. Why wouldn't we mention that? Like we've done that for years in the NBA. Pete, you have an NBA background. You're held to that standard. Once you get paid like a superstar, that's how you're going to be covered. Yeah. And so this like, it's not Dak's fault. It's the O-line. It's this or that. What are you talking about? Like his job is to elevate a team that is struggling. And he's doing just the opposite, the exact opposite. Like that was a horrible interception that he threw when they were only down 13-10, and he threw that interception. And yeah, what's his name didn't fight for the ball, CD, but he underthrew that ball. He looks like a deer in headlights. And so I don't, this team really, their only identity is not having one. They have not established really anything. And what they need is their star quarterback to carry them. And he's not getting it done. And it's a really sad thing to watch because I think he's someone who has all the intangibles and has a great leadership traits. And I mean, Pete, all these motivational, I think you and I should have done that, by the way. We should have like launched a career like motivational speakers. I mean, that's like a cottage industry now, but I think Dak is like that kind of person. Like he's an inspirational type guy, but the game's not there. And the game's not there. So he's kind of like Matt Rule. The best work he does is in the off season.
Matt Mosley, the best work he does is in the afternoons and also with us. Check him out today, ESPN 1660, Central Texas. Matt, dude, that was a great conversation. I can't thank you enough for the time.
Man, I appreciate it. And tell all the Rogers I said hello. Always fun being on with you, and I appreciate you a lot, and very excited to get this basketball season going Monday. And Scott Drew's going to be on with me today, and so I'll be sharing all that information with you immediately.
There you go. Also catch him here on the Rogue Media Network, the Doomsday Pod with Ed Werder. All right, Matt. Thanks, brother.
You bet. See ya.
See ya. The Pete Sousa Show, powered by the Rogue Media Network, marches on after this.
It's the Pete Sousa Show. Sports, Pete.
Tell you what's getting bigger and bigger as we welcome in Cam Stewart. Still talking to Scotty here. Scotty, last name?
Swingler.
Oh, man.
I mean, at some point, does it just become Scotty last name?
Scotty last name.
Checking in.
No, so we're talking about the anatomy of podcasting, and we're talking about reacting. And if you guys haven't noticed, my boy, Todd McShay, I say that truthfully. He and I went to Richmond together. He's a friend of mine. He is now doing work for The Ringer. Part of that work is reaction. His podcast went up Saturday night after, most of the big games were through. Okay. And it was him, Ryan Russillo made a guest appearance, and another Richmond guy, Steve Mensch, who played offensive line at Richmond and now works for ESPN, like kind of football scouts. And I guess somehow Mensch is still able to help Todd. But
it's interesting just because McShay was always like analyst.
Yeah.
Not that he doesn't have opinions and reactions, but he was always like great for the draft.
Yeah.
And because he scouted guys.
Yeah. And so the fact that he's got his own pod and I guess show, Corey here at Rogue Media will get on us. It's called a show. Todd has his own show on The Ringer because it's visual and it's also obviously audio. But the reaction thing, I hate this term, but I can't come up with a better one. The reaction space is becoming a bigger and bigger. Like after a big Baylor game, you're on right away.
My favorite ones to do. Always.
They are.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, because it's easy. You don't need to plan anything out. You watch the game. Like I took notes. I take notes on it during the games. But yeah, it's easy. It's emotional. It's interactive because we do it live. You get a live comment section. And most of the time, we're all on the same page. So that to me is great. That's trying to get my biggest crowds too. So
when was it already part of was it baked in when you took that job? the reaction? I feel
I
like
don't
the reason
think
I'm asking
so.
is because I feel like this is really becoming more and more.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think the guy before me, Drake, did live post games, which I started doing early on.
Drake told, by the way.
Yes, I started doing early on because they were like easier to set up for in a weird way. Like I didn't have to go back in, add things, cut it up,
Yeah,
upload it. Like it was just already uploaded, basically. So yeah, no, I think that was a new thing I did, and that became my favorite thing to do pretty quickly.
When did Mosley start the Doomsday podcast that you can hear on the Rogue Media Network?
I don't know, years ago.
But that was a reaction
Before I
pod.
knew him. Yeah.
I wonder. I'll have to ask him if he if it starts or if he started doing it live right after the game. You know what I mean? And did him and Werder used to just do it on Monday? And then
I think it would just be something that would drop on Monday because I used to listen to it.
Yeah, and now it's Sunday night.
And now it used to like that would keep me up on what the Cowboys were doing, but now I can't listen to it because then I can't use what they talk about in there because Mosley will be like, I think you just heard that on the Doomsday. So I can't do it.
You had a lot of thoughts. I shared with you my niece who is studying psychology at San Diego State sent me a questionnaire. So can you please fill this out? So first of all, I'm very close relationship with her, but she doesn't blow me up with text. So I was like, oh, wow, what does Lily want? And then it was questions like this after I open it up. How long have you been employed at your current job? Then a quick pivot. How many romantic relationships have you been in? What is your sexual orientation?
Now that we've gotten that job thing established.
Yeah. Of course, your gender's up there. Asked for how old I was. But it's interesting. You obviously, Grace, who is your girlfriend, is big into psychology, and we were talking earlier
She's
about
a psychologist. Yeah. She's gonna be a doctor in a few months. Yeah.
She's big into it.
Just a pastime.
Hobby for her.
Like she's a Red Sox
I'm
fan.
big into hockey. She's big into psychology. Yeah.
So, but it's dangerous to date a psychologist if you're
In
man.
a lot of ways, yeah. Especially with fucked up one like me. Yeah.
What is it like? Like you mentioned offline here recently how she talked about how the subconscious can connect with friends in a romantic way.
Yeah, you want me to talk about that thread? Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
So we were talking about a thread on Twitter where this person had said, like, I think there are more like romantic thoughts that you have about your platonic friends than you realize. And it was this whole thread about how and it was a lot of like same-sex stuff, and how girls are very much more comfortable hugging another girl or kissing them on the cheek or kissing them on the head, and guys don't really do that. Like I hug my friends and we do bro hugs and stuff, but I'm never kissing one of them on the forehead, or it feels weird to kind of share a bed with them sometimes, whereas girls it's still no problem, you know what I mean? And so she kind of goes into that in the thread and how it didn't used to be that way. Like Abraham Lincoln used to sleep with guys all the time. Or not like sex, but like slept with guys, you know, and all this stuff. And it would just used to be kind of a more common thing. And so we talked about that. And I am like, I am a subservient to the subconscious, man. Like I don't know. I know I can't control it. Like literally that's what it is. Subconscious. I can't control it. So I'm always fascinated by it. And so I'm like hearing this out. It was a good conversation. And I did mention in there, I was like, is this a way of you telling me that you want to fuck some of my friends? Is that what this is?
I
don't think it was.
Do you want me to power rank which ones of your friends I want to have sex with?
Yes, that is also a line that came out.
To which she responded,
Grace, are you trying to get me to power rank which one of your friends I'd like to fuck?
To which she responded,
no.
Okay.
She said no. And I suggested we could each get 3 of each other's friends.
So you keep it going?
Yeah, it's funny.
That's nice. It's a window into how close you guys are.
Yes. And we do have like not necessarily like sexual discussions like that all the time, but like psychological theory stuff. Obviously she knows way more than I do, but I'm fascinated by that stuff. Like I'm fascinated that we can't control all of our thoughts.
Yeah.
Or where that would come from. Like,
well, I think you have a pretty good hold on it though. What did you say earlier when you and I were talking about you can't, you don't know what your subconscious is up to, or you don't
I don't
underestimate it, I guess.
Correct. Don't underestimate it, and don't try to control it.
Yeah.
And actually one thing that we talk about a lot, which is the most boring thing to talk about, is in our dreams. Or like she'll say, "Oh, I banged this actor in my dream."
Yeah.
Like I don't get jealous of that. I can't control that.
No.
Like I've had dreams about like women that I don't even really find attractive in real life. You know what I mean? Like you've no control over it. And so I'm sure she has as well with other guys. So that's where I'm like, can't control it. Am I offering those up to her, all of those dreams? No, because I don't think I would want to hear on the other side. But it becomes a very sexual thing. But we talk about other things a lot.
Yeah.
And it helps that I've also been to therapy and I'm pretty fucked up. So she can diagnose.
How much therapy have you been in?
I have tried therapy like 5 times in my life.
Well, you're not going. You not right now.
I'm not right now. I'm on a waiting list now. See, now this is the problem.
That
it
a
sucks.
shame?
And I get it. But it does. It sucks. I've been on a waiting list for 2 months.
Yeah. Welcome to Texas, Scotty.
Yeah.
Wow.
Exactly.
Yeah, I've had people say that to me. I see
I was
a
in
therapist
therapy
now.
as early as 9.
Huh?
I was 9 years old when I first went.
I don't think. Look, man. I think therapy is the best.
It's great, man.
Yeah, I think I know that I owe it to the people.
When it's great, I should say.
Well,
because I've had some bad experiences in therapy, but for the most part, it's really
what's
good.
What's been the worst experience you've had? Can this go back on, Scotty? It's turned
off. It's
actually, I don't think it matters right now because you can't see it.
And it's not like I don't think I had like bad or mean therapists.
Yeah.
But like one time, in fact, the most recent one I had, which a couple years ago, they just they only listened to me.
Yeah.
And you've heard me, Pete. I can bitch quite a bit, and I could talk quite a bit when I'm bitching.
Yeah.
But like I'm going to therapy, I am looking for some answers.
Yeah.
I know it's not as simple as, oh, we'll just do this and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
But it would just be someone who their tactic was to just listen and have me just talk it out. And I'm like, no, but I need some perspective here.
Yeah.
Like I need, as you can tell by some of the things I bitch about,
yeah.
Like I'm always open to hearing options.
No, yeah, you're pretty good with feedback. I like to think I am too.
So like that, just kind of that stuff. But like,
how about when a therapist says, "Would you like me to provide feedback on that?" I'm like, "Yeah."
That's why I'm here for. That's why I'm paying the money. Yeah. But no, we talk about all kind. Like I will say, your girlfriend or your significant other should not be your therapist.
Yeah.
And we've been on the same page about that from day one.
And she knows, she's got the facts behind that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But what's cool about it is I can talk through things and we both kind of know where that's coming from, I guess. Like, for example, take it back to a romantic thing. I think about my old relationships probably just about as much as I think about my current relationships, because I think about the things I learned from them a lot. And so I can bring those things up to her and she's not going to be like, why are you thinking about her? Or why are you thinking about that bitch? Or something like that. I could just be like, no, it's because, I think she did something wrong in this relationship and I reacted to it poorly too. So, you know what I mean? So like we can talk about things that she won't get immediately jealous about or like really overthink. Like she kind of knows.
Now, will you bring it up?
Sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And in fact, she actually like asked me like probably a year into our relationship about my past relationships. Because I didn't really, honestly, I hadn't really talked about them that much.
That shows how healthy she is because that usually comes up on either side way before that.
Yeah.
Right, Scotty?
Yeah. Yeah. That's usually one of the first thing. I feel like the trope is like, that's like a second date kind of question, right?
Yeah.
And like, it just kind of organically, like we found out like what kind of relationships we've been in, how many we had been in, what types of relationships they were, like stuff like that. But yeah, it was just not something I was going to offer up right away. Cause I go back to this thing about RG3.
I can tell you were kind of thinking.
I think I've talked about this on your show before. RG3, when he left the R words, went to the Browns, there was a story that he was like ready to give up Washington's playbook. And I remember talking about it with my dad at the time because he had said, like, don't do that with your jobs. Don't immediately go into the other job and start bashing the other people, because then they'll be thinking not, oh, this guy's so great, he's one of us, he's bashing the rival. They'll be thinking, what is he going to say about us when they leave? So that's why I'm not like, second date, oh, my last girlfriend was so crazy.
No,
she's a bitch. She was insane. Because I would think the same thing if she was saying it to me. I'd be like, well, that's maybe what are they thinking about me? And if all of them are out to get her, or all of the guys are crazy, or all of the guys are, then what does that say? So that's why I didn't offer it up. But now we can talk about it healthfully.
You're showing accountability.
Yeah.
Like the common denominator, every bad relationship I have been in has been me.
Yes.
And so I was taught, and this is from getting sober more than anything else, but like just my part in things. It doesn't mean that like I have the overwhelming blame in the situation.
Yeah. I still do pick a winner and a loser, which is not a great exercise, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
What do you mean you pick a winner and a loser?
So like one of my long-term relationships, I look back on, it was in college, early part of college. So I look back on it. I was like, I should have done this differently. I was very immature about this. I don't think I put her in a good position here, but she also cheated on me. So, who, like, I'm still the victim here. Like, I do a little bit of that.
Yeah, but see, in AA and 12 steps, I'm not revealing, the playbook like RG3. This is positive. Like, you would have a part in that because you put her in a terrible position. Mm-hmm. I'm saying terrible now, just to make my point, but you put her in at odds with whatever it was, and she felt neglected or whatever, and she was moved to do that. Mm-hmm. Like, if I'm constantly nurturing, and at some point too, right, the person's just not right for me, and maybe you were like, there's always like, maybe you were the victim. I don't know. I wasn't there, but I have learned to constantly own my stuff because there's no other way forward. If I don't own my stuff, I can't control them.
Right.
The way I was beaten into submission, by the way, to learn that. Like, I had to be broken to get to try to get sober, and then all that stuff. So I was down for anything, suggestion-wise.
And I use a sports analogy with this too. It's like looking at those relationships. It's like, did you lose by 3 or did you lose by 40? Well, it doesn't matter. You lost. You know what I mean? Like, and you can learn from a loss, right? So it's like, it doesn't really matter now whose fault it was. We're not getting back together, right? I've moved on. She's moved on, probably. Like, I think it's safe to say she's moved on. I think so. It's been a while, but it's like, doesn't matter really whose fault it was. We both learned from it, I think, and there's another game.
That's why basketball and baseball are great. What do you got, Scotty?
I have nothing to contribute to relationship conversations at the moment. Just gonna be honest with you.
Knowing your situation a little bit like I do, I wanted to see what we had over there.
I have no comments.
Jeez, come on.
You guys seem to be applying the right lessons at the right time to the right circumstances.
I probably didn't take me as long as Pete did. From the way you described it, but it was not an easy fix. I mean, really, it took me a long time. It was pretty deep into that next relationship that I realized how bad I was in the other relationship. So it was very gradual, and it was a lot of realization, a lot of come to Jesus kind of thing.
Well, and lest anyone think that you get sober and you stop making bad decisions, I got news for you. No chance. I mean, you've been on my show. I've been in multiple bad situations, relationship-wise, that I willingly just went right into, in sobriety that did not turn out well. But I can also say it led me to where I am now, which is like the happiest I've been. So,
but all that to say, if I was dating someone that's not a psychologist, she'd be very confused at how much I think about past romantic.
Yeah, well, and I was about
past
to say,
friendships too. By the way.
That shows.
Which could have been romantic. Who knows? Based on the thread. I don't know.
Well, welcome to the human race, though. Like, anybody can feel some kind of way when you're talking about your significant other's exes. But
that's clearly, like, I wouldn't know how I would handle it if she constantly did it.
Grace has done. Do you constantly do it? You might want to stop.
No, not constantly. But you're right. It's not constant. Like, I would probably get peeved if she did it more than a couple of times. Yeah. I know that's not the right way to handle it.
I ask I'm not going to say who it is, but Christy, my girlfriend, has been with people one person who is definitely famous who you would know.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
I will mess with her about it. It's so ridiculous that I'll mess with her about it. Like I truly
I would
don't
totally do the same.
now
thing, by the way.
if the guy like anybody if he came back into her orbit and was like courting her and stuff, I'd be like, yeah, what the heck? Like it wouldn't feel great.
If it's Fat Joe, I swear to God.
But right now it's pretty hilarious. And so I'll ask her once in a while about it. Because I'm so in love with her. She's good natured. It's funny. We can joke. But I do notice myself. Look, dude, I have blown up relationships because of my sense of humor, like being too dark. Yeah. Where I've gone to a place where that person has been like, nope, and like it's been like, oh my gosh, like we're not coming back from that, and it's like And
bro, that is the ultimate feeling out process.
Yes.
And I'm glad I hopefully never have to do that again.
No, exactly. And
like,
I don't want to have to bite my tongue or yeah. You can be yourself. All right, Cam, that was great, man. How about that?
Once every couple of weeks we do a therapy.
Those are usually the best sessions. Cam Stewart, today, he's going to be on with Matt Mosley. Matt Mosley's coming on my show. I have confirmation he was actually just on. So thanks, Matt.
You could have even switched it around. You didn't.
How about Tekashi 69 got arrested? And that's breaking news. Like, is that breaking news anymore?
Who the fuck is that?
You don't know who he is? Tekashi 69. You don't know the rapper? You don't know. All right. Well, we'll be back.
It's the Pete Sousa Show. Sports, Pete.
We are Rogue Media Sports.